Achat, shtayim, shalosh. Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, music lovers everywhere. I have a treat for you on this episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream. Because if you've been listening to music for the past 30, 40 years now, oh my God, you heard wonderful eccentric pop songs by the Soft Boys and then the solo artist ROBYN Hitchcock. He has made brilliant music. It's lyrical, it's funny, it's serious, it's hummable, and it's wonderful. And amazingly enough, he's walking around Seattle right now looking for the Space Needle, and what he's found on his telephone is us. So welcome and shalom, ROBYN Hitchcock, to the neighborhood.
Shalom, Rabbi. How are you?
Aches, pains, misery, the usual Jewish things. How are you? That's more important.
Well, I'm much the same in a kind of goyish way. You know, I have just kind of dismal British aches and pains and a kind of more downbeat Weltschmerz, really. But, you know, it's all the same glue, isn't it? Just each of us filters it in our own glorious way.
Well, it's interesting because your co-nationist Richard Thompson named one of his albums Keltschmerz. That's probably what you have. You know, I get the Weltschmerz, you get the Keltschmerz.
Oh, did he do one called Weltschmerz?
Well, he did one called Keltschmerz. Yeah, it's a play on being Celtic, and so he called it Keltschmerz.
Ah.
I thought it was amusing. Obviously you did not. But so have you found the needle yet?
No, I'm just in a parking lot, but I'm going to set off and have a look. I saw it a couple of minutes ago, but it kind of got far. I just swap hands for my phone.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I mean, once I figure out which direction it is, I will set off towards it.
Now,
that's fine. We can carry on chatting.
Now, people might associate you with Seattle because you did that wonderful song about SeaTac years ago, but you're actually living in Nashville these days. What is that like, being down sort of south in America?
Well, Nashville is its own. East Nashville, where I live, is a fairly liberal bubble, so it's like a sort of, Park Slope South, Williamsburg, overspill, there's a little trapdoor that the groovers from Brooklyn come up through, and they find themselves in the East Nashville coffee shops. It's pretty civilized, They've got vinyl record stores and tattoo parlors, and gigs with, telegraph poles with staples in them announcing shows, and more coffee shops. It's nice.
You sound almost as conversant or more conversant with American places. Williamsburg, Brooklyn, you mentioned now, Seattle. Now, or do you feel almost more American now than British?
Well, yeah, in a way. I just kind of don't really belong anywhere now. It's not that I'm more American. I am. There are two kinds of people, the living and the dead, and each of us gets to be both of them. So the big gap is which side of the death barrier you are, really, whether I'm in Sydney or New York or Seattle or Nashville or London. And I go to all those places, and I like being in all of those places. I'm still alive. One day I won't be.
Thank God. Well, no, same here. How much do you think about that, more or less? I mean, some teenagers are death obsessed, and as they get into middle age and stuff, they kind of don't think about it. You're getting up there a little bit. Is death a little more present in your consciousness, or is it still, I feel fine, I'm all right?
I think it's always in my consciousness. It's the last gift that we open, really, our departure. Some people are so frightened of dying that they have to do it. I'm very aware of it. I think now at my end of life, it's just keeping me very busy, knowing that I may not have that long to be doing this. I feel I can't hang around. now is not the time to relax and, you know, sit there stroking the cats and write my memoirs. Having said that, I spend as much possible time as I can stroking the cats.
And are you writing memoirs? Are you tried to write a novel, but you couldn't get all the way through it? But what about writing your history, your bio, as it were?
No, I'm not writing my history. I've tried doing that, and I'm not really interested in my own narrative. I make notes when I travel around, and some of those are reminiscences, but I wouldn't publish them. They're really just my thoughts. I mean, I won't leave a bio, but I will leave a lot of songs people can construct, if they care to, they can construct what they think my life must have been from those songs. You know, there's an awful lot of them. So
yes. Well, have you been?
Sorry. There's a lot of interviews too. So you know, I'm sure people could stick their own version of my life together.
Have you been contacted by any universities at this point saying, "Look, you're not dead yet, but when you do, can we have boxes of your stuff?"
Do I have boxes of?
Well, in other words, like, have universities come to you like they did to Bob Dylan and other people and say, "Look, you know, after you die, can we have your scribbles, your lyrics, your drawings, your stuff?" You know?
I'm not sure. I mean, they have to be somewhere people can get at them. I would assume that whoever survives me, that I'm close to, will have that stuff, and they can decide what to do with it. I wasn't going to leave it to any particular institution. You know, it's all there. I just can't be bothered to. I'd rather add to things than try and tidy them up. You know, I feel like I'm going to keep going until I stop, and I'm going to try and keep going after I stop. I want to have myself made into an app so people's phones can write Robyn Hitchcock songs, or they can write a song and they can have a percentage of the song that's mine. You know, they could say, I'd like 27% Robyn Hitchcock, 15% Beck, you know, 12% Elliott Smith, and the rest of it's me, or something, you know.
That sounds brilliant. And you can do sort of grabbing words from different places. Like, it has to have squid somewhere in there, and then a place on the map, you point to a place, you add that into the song, and then something else weird, and then a real cool hook. And there, you've got a Robyn Hitchcock. I'm kidding. I'm being reductive, and I apologize for that.
Well, that's fine. I think there's only time to be reductive. We don't have time to expand.
It's just so wonderful listening to you. I have to say that, not just your music, but even just talking to you, the way you express yourself. I'm kind of wondering, when you were a kid going into grade school and whatever the English equivalent of high school is, did teachers notice when you were writing essays that you just had a special way of expressing yourself? Did they encourage it? Did they try to swat you down?
No, they were good. I think I've been lucky in that respect. My father was a writer, and before that he was a cartoonist and a painter. So the one thing that I was encouraged to do, definitely, and learned was words. And then because my father, maybe because he wasn't involved in music, I went into music. But I remember writing poems when I was, you know, 7 or 8 at school, and teachers going, "Wow!" And I actually didn't know quite why they liked them. I was very pleased they did. You know, it's always nice to have your ego watered and get a few compliments. But I didn't know. But I guess that's something I've always been fairly good at is words. You know, but I don't drive, and I don't know how to mend a fuse or fix an electric kettle, or I can't do anything, you know.
I mean, you're talking to a Jewish person. We have absolutely no aptitude with fixing or helping anything. We can barely dial a phone to call a repairman, so I'm totally on board with you. with that. Can I ask when I often dream of trains. That was kind of your first album. In between childhood and then, when you started writing songs, were they already kind of what people would say quirky or unique or eccentric, or were you trying to imitate more standard pop before you found your vision?
What? The songs on I Often Dream of Trains?
Well, in other words, before that point, where you had already kind of discovered who you were as a songwriter, when you were in your early teens, let's say, did you write songs that were already like you, or was it more like you had to imitate the Beatles or Elliott Smith or whomever?
Well, they were always songs that were, if nothing else, were like the people that I liked. You could argue that I am basically just my record collection, or that anybody is. You are your taste, you are your own inclination. So, I loved. Captain Beefheart, Syd Barrett, Lou Reed, people who were good with words, but also visual. And I loved the Beatles and Bob Dylan, and still do. I was probably trying to write from when I was 15, really onwards. I was trying to write songs like Dylan did in the Basement tapes, or the Beatles did on the White Album. And I don't think it's really changed much. I don't know. It was more to do with putting songs together. I didn't understand how you put songs together, and so I wrote some dreadful songs, about 700 of them, in the first part of the 1970s. Then, about 1979, I finally worked out how to write songs in the middle of the Soft Boys, and I would say that's when I kind of got going, really.
What was there a particular song that put a light bulb over your head? Was there an aha moment when you went, aha, yes, I'm here?
No, but I think by the time I heard the songs on Underwater Moonlight, that was a sort of light bulb moment. I thought, oh, those are good. And also, quite a few of those I can still play on my own on acoustic guitar. Not all of them, because the Soft Boys was a very virulent electric guitar band. So songs like Insanely Jealous, Kingdom of Love really don't work on an acoustic guitar, but quite a few off Moonlight still do, and I think that's where I began to be a songwriter, I think.
Yeah. From the Soft Boys era.
One. So yeah. I was, 25? I suppose 25, 26.
Yeah. Yeah.
27, that's it. 26, I guess.
Okay. We'll split the difference, 26, yeah. So, well, and also I should just tell you that one of my favorite songs of yours and of the Soft Boys is actually Human Music, which is kind of an acoustic-y thing, right there.
Sorry, which one's that?
Human Music.
Human Music?
It's the one before Aleppo and the Jukes, yeah.
Well, if you like that one, I think I was maybe just coming up to 25, but if you consider Bob Dylan as more or less peaked by that, and I think that was probably one of my earliest sort of songs that worked.
Yeah.
So I was, I didn't come out of the womb as a good songwriter. I wasn't, like Lennon and McCartney and Dylan and Syd Barrett. It just seemed to come out writing great songs. They were 19, 20,
right.
19 or 20, and I was really my mid-20s before I got any good, and then I sort of carried on. Whoa, four decades. later, here I am.
Halavai, 4 decades of Robyn Hitchcock. And it's wonderful that you're here talking with us and taking this time. But I wonder, with someone like you who has to travel, right, who has to do these interviews, who has to, you have a girlfriend that you're living with and you're doing all these things, and you also have to deal with a catalog of hundreds of songs. When do you have time to make new music?
Time?
Yeah.
Well, in between the time of mine swallowed by social media, it's how I make my living. I've written these songs. It's my life. It's 40 years later, and so what I do is I go around the world singing them. I still write new songs. I throw them on the pile, but I know at this stage that I'm an oldies act, and the songs of mine that resonate most with people are the ones I probably did write 40 years ago, like soft voice stuff. So it's not hard to remember a song if you if you sing it 3 nights a week. So
although
and I rely on good old social media, people from the audience, the listeners, to write in on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of them and suggest that something they'd like to hear, and if I like that song, I'll learn it for that show.
Yeah, because you have said that you wouldn't mind never having to play Balloon Man or My Wife and My Dead Wife again, even though people enjoy hearing them. I enjoy hearing them. But I can understand that maybe, please request something else.
Well, I'd be very happy never to play either of those again, but I'd certainly rather play them than starve. So, they're my own songs. They're a worse fate than having to perform your own work. And they are smart songs, well put together.
Yes.
They've lasted, so I'm pleased with all that stuff that it has lasted, that people still want to hear them, and they're not something that just kind of is a piece of ephemera or simply a kind of nostalgia gimmick. I think those songs are well constructed. I just could probably, I don't have to play any particular song. I'm not tethered to anything because I'm not tethered to any hits. But
right, and that does not make you a nostalgia addict.
Psychedelic Furs, they always have to play
Pretty in Pink
and Love My Way and The Ghost in You. And if you see Paul McCartney, he always has to play Hey Jude and Let It Be
and Why Don't We Do It in the Road? And I'm kidding about that. But so speaking of playing other people's songs, though, have you done any more of those one-off benefit things where you do an entire album? Because you've done that for Pink Floyd. You even released an album of you doing the 1966 Bob Dylan Manchester concert. Have you done any more of those all-album things for kicks and benefits?
Have we done them apart from... No, I think they were pretty much all... A lot of them were their benefits in Clerkenwell for Médecins Sans Frontières, which... Is
that Yiddish? What?
It was Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF. They were a benefit for that organisation. So we did... Yeah, I have performed some of my favourite albums live.
Right.
And I've also performed some of my own albums live. I've done Often Dream of Trains, Black Snake, Diamond Roll, and sort of versions of them. And again, they're fun, but I wouldn't want to have to do them all the time. And
well, was there something very special about... that's a wonderful thing that you bring up, like going back to doing Black Snake, Diamond Roll, or and doing not just a song or two that you pick or choose for a particular concert or someone calls out they want to hear it, but the entire album. Does it put you back right in the moment when you were writing it and recording it? Do you have a different feeling about it, doing the whole thing? What was that like?
Oh, well... I mean, they're all a form of bottled time. you know, I think one of the reasons that one of the motivations behind art is to try and distill your feelings about life, about your life, and bottle them, you know, like a firefly in a jar, but the firefly would never die. And it would be there as a kind of eternal lamp. And you bottle your feelings, you bottle these moments, and you got them captive but still alive, and you can bring them out every time you play them, or every time somebody listens to them on a record. And so you've just got a little bit of life in there, and just a few moments, a few feelings going round and round, like a GIF, you know, in Instagram or something. So I suppose doing a whole album is like a bigger version of that. You've just got this slice of time that comes back, and there's a kind of nutrition in it. There's something about inhabiting that time that I find kind of revitalizing. It doesn't feel like being trapped in the past. It more feels like redeeming the past. Like, okay, right, it's still here. It didn't just blow away into the ether. You know, here it is.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't necessarily catapult me back to be 32 again or 27 or whatever. It may do that to the listener. I'm sure that's one of the reasons people like that. Even more so if I perform somebody else's, you know, you go and perform Abbey Road or something like that, and everybody's in tears. You know, they just, oh my God, it's back. It walks the earth. It's Abbey Road. Oh, St. John. Oh, St. George. You know.
Well, I do challenge you to.
McCartney. Oh, yeah. Archbishop Starr. You know, we love you all.
I'm just saying, if you ever want to perform like Metal Machine music front to back, that'd be a pretty easy one to learn and do for the benefit. Not sure how many people would sit through more than 10 minutes, but you could try.
Sit through what?
I'm kidding. I made a joke about doing Metal Machine music as a benefit.
Oh.
Yeah, that fell. Another joke fell flat right here on Dave's Gone By, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking with the wonderful, delightful ROBYN Hitchcock, and the brilliant, actually, ROBYN Hitchcock. Do you have a few more minutes with us?
Hello. Here we are. Sorry, I've just come up to the road again. I'm still trying to find the needle, but
oh my God!
I'm going to go back into the parking lot because it's easier to hear you.
Sure.
I'll strike out to the needle once we've finished because
I think you've walked to Portland, Oregon at this point. Yeah.
Too noisy.
Sure, yeah. You still sound fine, by the way. And by the way, everybody, if you don't know that much of ROBYN Hitchcock's work, it's not just one or two songs here and there that we've already talked about. He's got just so many albums out and so many terrific pieces of music on them. Now, remind us, I think your most recent album, solo album, is the one that you named after yourself. It's literally called ROBYN Hitchcock after all these years.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Is there anything newer than that?
Anything, what about that?
Anything newer, later than that?
Well, I'm glad you asked me, Rabbi. I actually have a new 7-inch single, which is out on my label, the label I run with my partner, Emma Swift, and Tiny Ghost Records, named after our beloved Persian cat, Tiny, who didn't live very long, but she lives on as a record label. And there's a single called Sunday Never Comes, and the other song on it is Take Off Your Bandages. And that is available by mail order and at live shows only at the moment, but it will be going out to a few select radio stations, and you can find it on my website. It's pressed up in a record plant in Norway, and it was recorded with some of my friends from East Nashville. That's the most recent thing I've done. I recorded that just before Christmas. So, yeah, I do have a fab new 45 out.
And you do get a lot of help from, as you call her, your partner, your girlfriend, etc., Emma Swift. You've sung with her, you've made music with her. Is it helpful because since you're not doing the A&M Records major label thing anymore, to be releasing and having things through your website and social media, is it a big pain in the tuchus, or you're kind of used to it?
What you mean? Doing stuff from home, doing stuff for the...
Well, getting your music out there without having an A&M with their A&R.
Oh, well, I see. For a long time, I didn't. I mean, I've been on indie labels for 10 years before I signed to A&M. And then I was on A&M, and then I was on Warner's sort of late 80s and up till the end of the 20th century. But then since then, my stuff has mostly gone through Yeprock, which is an independent label.
Right.
So most of my career happened without the backing of a major label.
But even Yeprock, you weren't
I'm very
personally...
used to being
yeah.
indie, if you like. And,
sure.
And I own the rights to most of my material, which is largely leased to Yeprock at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but at least you have, with Yeprock, you've got still other people having to do the shipping and it. Because years ago on the program, we had the singer-songwriter Jane Siberry. I'm sure you know who that is. And she was one of the pioneers in this thing. But she was, she'd sit home half the time and she'd have to put the stamp on the thing, write the label out, write a personal note, send it, mail it, deal with the returns. It was like, she had to figure out another way.
Well, once you get into the whole business of seriously self-releasing, that is quite demanding. But, all I've done so far, all we've done is put out a couple of singles and re-release an album that only came out in Norway. So all this stuff is simply geared towards merchandise, stuff that's sold at shows and on the web. And those are the only guaranteed ways of making money. If you make a record for a label, these days, it's not profitable, that you actually lose money on making a record and giving it to a label, or at least I do. So we're just experimenting. I mean, I haven't got any plans for an album. I think if something like that happens, then you have to. It's changed. It's changed so much, because even if you're with a label now, they no longer have art departments. They no longer have publicity departments. They no longer have radio pluggers. So they will hire those people in for you, or you pay for them yourself. So less and less for a record label to do, apart from pressing and distribution, what used to be called P&D. So my friends Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, who live down the road, I mean, they started their company ages ago. They're at a much higher level, but basically they do it all themselves. They have their own studio, and then they have someone, press and distribute the records for them. But they also have their own office that mails stuff out. I think now I'm sure you're thrilled you asked this technical question. Now you figure out what your project is, and you probably hire people in accordingly. Mm. So, were I to make another LP and do it independently, I would simply have to hire in the publicists and the pluggers and get a distribution deal and sort out manufacturing,
But you're still connected to it.
I kind of know all the people who do this anyway.
True.
I've been around a long time, and it doesn't mean to say that things don't change. It's a mistake to think just because, experience prepares you for the past, not for the future.
What a wonderful line. Yeah.
That whole thing of, don't tell me, mate, I've been around. But, I guess I know quite a lot of people who will do these things. So,
and you're still connected with Yeprock.
It's a matter of delegating and figuring out how that goes. But still a big step. So
Sure.
I'm in no hurry to make another LP.
Oh. Well, wait, but aren't you still connected to Yep Rock if you wanted to do it through them?
I'm still connected to Yep Rock, and Yep Rock have a distribution company as well, but really that's a conversation I would have with
Sure.
them. If when the time came for me to record another full-length record, and like I said, I'm nowhere near that. So hence this little 7-inch that Emma and I have just put out, and you know, I have some other collaborations pending.
If you ever want to write in Yiddish, I'm available. I can totally help you with that.
Oh, sorry?
I said, why is every joke I say? I said, if you ever want to write a song in Yiddish, I'm available. Just letting you know.
Yiddish, oh good.
Just putting that out there.
Oh man, well you can always translate, yeah.
There you go.
You know, good Yiddish, yeah, nice Yiddish term.
So, let me ask, I was alluding to this before when I asked about how you're able to compartmentalize your time, but do you try and write every day?
Not consciously, but I have notebooks with me, and I can now, of course, you know, the phone is so insidious that you can. I write a lot of poems on the phone, actually, more than lyrics. But I write stuff down a lot, and then every so often I'll pick up the guitar and sing it, or take it to the piano. You know, I'm addicted to playing music, so everything I am supposed to do, I defer, I push to one side. I'm always behind with my accounts, you know, and all that stuff, you know, all my projects I talk about just get pushed aside as soon as I've got a piano or a guitar in front of me. So,
well, you know, quite honestly, that's the most important thing. If you got a piano and guitar in front of you and you feel compelled, that's the thing that's going to last when people are using you as an app 50 years from now, more than just paying a bill.
I won't be remembered for my accounts, will I?
No, not at all. The stuff that's on your shelves, the drawers, the bills you pay, no. It's maybe the thing that you write tomorrow will be the thing that people most remember. Like, oh, let me check that ROBYN Hitchcock app. And it's a cool song. I'm going to add my own beats to it and collaborate with him. Something like that. I don't know. It's a thought.
Exactly. You don't know what's going to happen. But I mean, it's in a way, it's all an attempt to leave a message for those that come after you. You know, it's like the notches carved on the prison wall. The previous inmate. Oh yeah, I see.
No, not to get. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to preserve something and pass it on, because we are temporary, and we know we're temporary. So at least that's one of my theories about art, if you like. And I suppose I've come from a background where I approach things as art rather than entertainment, which is probably accounts for my position in the world, my status. And you know, I was never a pop singer, and I never aimed to be a pop singer. But when you run into major labels, they try and steer you that way. So I guess, yeah.
Well, can I ask? And sorry if this is too personal, but you don't have children.
My children are older than me now.
Oh, you do? I'm sorry, you have kids. I didn't know that.
Well, my stepson's 46, and he's very adult. He's got 2 kids. And my daughter's 42, and she's adult in a different way. But, yeah, they're great.
Well, you have something to hand down to. You have people, yeah.
They're not driven. I mean, they appreciate the arts, but they're not. That's not their profession. Yeah, they're over in Europe.
Now, to get a little bit nostalgic with you, because you've worked with so many people and had so many experiences, I'm kind of curious about, let's say, you had some of your music produced by Joe Boyd, right? Who worked with everybody. I mean, he worked with Pink Floyd, he worked with Fairport Convention, he worked with Nick Drake, whom you wrote a song about. Do you have any anecdotes or stories about knowing or working with Joe Boyd?
Oh, nothing repeatable. No.
Oh, it's okay. We don't have. We have a lot of latitude in terms of language and.
But no, Joe is he's a very got good ears. He's got a very clear brain, and he was there at a very, he was there at the beginning. He was there at kind of at Genesis, and he was there. He was there at the kind of Big Bang. He was there, and he's the guy with the anecdotes. He was the guy who went out with somebody who was involved with, he had a date with a girl, and then turned up and she was in bed with Bob Dylan. And, he was the guy who had to try and get him to turn the sound down at Bob Dylan's first electric gig at the Newport. And he was the man who discovered the Incredible String Band and who produced the first Pink Floyd single. And he discovered Fairport Convention, one of whom introduced him to Nick Drake. So in the course of about 5 years, Joe was just at the epicenter of all this. He ran the UFO, which was our first British underground club, and arguably from that came the first rock festivals with their sort of multimedia events. And, he was there when folk and pop merged, the streams merged, and rock was born. He was, and I listened to all those records from between I was, perhaps 14, 15, 16. So Joe reads from his. Have you read his book, White Bicycles?
I have not read the book, but I'm just fascinated by someone, as you said, who was there at the Big Bang of everything. And it makes me wonder, like, when you're working with someone like that, do you feel inhibited a little bit? Do you feel constrained to say, well, whatever he says goes and is right because he lived it, he knows? Or can you step to the plate and say, Joe, I kind of hear it like this instead?
No, I don't think I feel inhibited, but I certainly would respect his opinion. But, we're both quite old. I mean, I was 60 when I made that record with him, and he would have been 72. So this would have been an interaction between mature gentlemen. But, he doesn't, he's quite binary. He tends to like something or he doesn't. That's good, or do it again. And I think, okay, fine, I'll do it again. But he's not somebody that drags you round and round in a spiral about doing something. He's quite impatient. He wants to get things done and move on, and so am I. So, that record is very simple, but it was also recorded with Jerry Boyce, who Joe has worked with for years, and I think he was on some of the music in the early 70s that Joe was doing. So even the late 60s maybe. So it was very well recorded. But it's deliberately a very sparse record. I wouldn't necessarily involve Joe in a record that was being made with a band with a lot of overdubs, because I just don't think it would interest him very much.
Now that brings up another producer that you worked with. I think one of the more brilliant producers out there now, John Bryan. What was it like working with him?
Bryan.
Yeah.
Oh, well, John is a musician as much as he's a producer. John is somebody, if you're working with John, you really want John to play on everything. I mean, yes, his opinion about harmonies being in tune or something is important, but what's more important with John is having him there to play drums at double speed and then slow them down, or to have him overdubbing Chamberlain or Marxophone or any number of arcane instruments that he has in his warehouse on your record. I mean, with all producers, to some extent, it's all producers who are musicians. What you're getting is some of their sound.
Mm.
Working with Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, you know, it's like being on one of their records, but being in a Gil and Dave sandwich with them. Their harmonies and guitar playing around my lead vocal, which is an incredible privilege. Working with Brendan Benson, it was particularly about the sound, particularly the guitar sound. Brendan's got a fantastic guitar sound. He really understands pop, rather in a way I think like Pat Collier did back in the Soft Boys days. So I got a very good electric, you know, one of my various sort of attempted Beatle records out of that. Mm. Although Brendan himself didn't play on it. So yeah, they're all good. They're all different, and I generally tend to find somebody else to work with for the next project, just because it's fun to do that. I would work with any of them again, but I also just like trying people out.
Well, you have said that it's been kind of, I don't know if a dream, but you've always been curious about what it might be like to work with Brian Eno. And yet, you said you had his number, you lost his number, you haven't got... I mean, what would stop you from just saying, hey, Brian, want to go into a studio?
Brian Eno?
Yeah.
I can't get hold of him, but if he's listening to the podcast, Brian, come on in, please.
No, wait a minute. No. You, if you really wanted to, you would have the ways, and you contact his agent, and you could find him.
I probably couldn't afford him, actually, is the answer.
Well, that's different. Okay, neither could I.
I would imagine Brian is, I mean, I've met him a few times, but I suspect that he's in a league that is financially beyond mine. His clients are all pretty high end, and I don't really have very much to offer him, but I would, anytime, you know.
Oh, fair enough.
He can find me.
Now, speaking of people that you've worked with, and I promise you we're coming to a conclusion here. I've kept you so long, and it's just been such an honor. But I do want to hear any anecdotes or memories of Jonathan Demme, with whom your career was kind of linked for many years. He did a concert film, as it were, of you. He cast you in a couple of his films. He had a feature role in Rachel Getting Married. So, any Jonathan Demme memories?
Jonathan Demme was good. He was good to his friends. I just remember him saying, "The camera loves you, buddy," and he wanted to put me in a feature film, which was very exciting. He put me in the Manchurian Candidate as the sort of secondary villain, and I said, "Well, gosh, Jonathan," I said in my self-defeating British way, "You know, I mean, I'm only I'm a musician, really. There's so many actors." He said, "It's all performance, isn't it, Robin?" And I thought, yeah, you're right. It's all performance. So there I was in a Jeep with Denzel Washington in a quarry in New Jersey, a freezing December day, and other exciting locations. It was great. I'm very grateful to Jonathan. He helped me out, and he came along at a time when I needed a bit of help. So yeah, on a couple of occasions he was really good, and he just went very suddenly. I didn't even realize that he was that sick. So I'm sorry he went.
Wow. Boy, well, I'm sorry to get closing on this with such a bummer, but we are very, very incredibly grateful to be talking to the great Robyn Hitchcock. You want to go to his website, it's robynhitchcock.com. And remember, Robyn with a Y, Robyn, because he's an English sort of person, robynhitchcock.com. I've certainly, it's been a joy talking to you. Can I ask you one more question? I mean, it's an odd one, but...
Rabbi, far away, please.
Oh, wonderful. So, again, you have to be saddled sometimes with the label eccentric or quirky, and you've written some pretty quirky stuff, no question. Do you sometimes go back on songs you've written 20, 30 years ago or more recently and think, what did I mean by that when I wrote that? I don't even know. It just came out of me, and I'm like, what was I talking about?
Not as such. I mean, sometimes I don't remember the words. I can usually see how I got there. I mean, I'm just me, you know. If people find me eccentric or quirky, then that's their term for me, it's not mine. I simply am me, and I do what I do. Everyone knows my influences. Everybody knows my tastes. Everyone knows my inclinations. Thanks to the internet, people even see photographs of my breakfast. You know, I put them up myself. It's very clear and obvious, I think, what I am.
Is it Weetabix, by the way? Or?
It's not going to be to everybody's taste. I realize that. But, you know, I can't.
Sure.
I can't put it any other way than I do. No. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
no.
And I'm sure there is some of my songs are probably clearer to the listener than others. All I can say is they all come from the same impulse, and I control how the songs sound, but I don't control where they come from. I don't choose to write the songs I do. I simply receive them, and I put them out there in the best way I can. And I know people often say that about songwriting, so I think it's I guess they do, you know.
No, I mean, I think that's what. And last, now I'm turning that into the penultimate question. Now the last question: is there a favorite couplet or stanza of yours that you're most proud of lyrically?
Any songs I'm particularly proud of?
Either a full song, or it can just be part of a song, like a lyric that you just like. Oh, I'm so glad I wrote that.
Oh, I think the stuff I like listening to most of mine actually is the instrumentals. Not that I've recorded one lately, but the ones that haven't got any words on. I often dream of trains, and there's a sort of
yeah.
I like those pieces. I don't really. I don't think there's any song you know, some of them are probably better than others, but you know, I'm glad they're all there. I love all my children equally.
Well, I don't know if we all love your children equally song-wise, but we certainly love so many of them because they are so wonderful. And you, ROBYN Hitchcock, it has just been absolutely, I've said this before, a joy and an honor. First of all, I only wish that you will come back to be on the show again and we can talk some more about other things. I wish you health,
thank you.
More success, more creativity, more great things in your life before you die and after you die, even on the app.
Thank you, Rabbi Sol, and the same to you. I hope next time in some situation I can hear you better. But it's very kind of you to take the time to call me. I'm now going to lope off and make a real effort to find a Space Needle. It's only a few hundred yards away, but it's ducked behind some buildings, and I've had to be in a parking lot to talk to you. So I'm going to set off seriously on my mission before I go back to Nashville.
Well,
but take care, and I will see you soon somewhere, I hope.
God willing, that would be wonderful. And shalom to you.
All right. Mazel tov, shalom, and abesto. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
ROBYN Hitchcock on Dave's Gone By. I'm failing.